Okay, so can you all hear me? Yes, excellent. All right, so I want to start off by saying, because of the three talks we've just seen from David, Alex and Gianna, I'm actually incredibly depressed because pretty much everything I'm going to say is already been said. But that actually, to me, is really, really exciting because we're all saying the same thing. We all see the same issues, we all see the same ways to move forward through this collaborative approach, and we all see very big opportunities for connected devices and medtech and improving patient compliance. So that's really, really saddening and exciting at the same time. Okay, so I'm from an innovation centre in the UK, and our role is to take inventions and move them through that gap to the point of pre-commercialisation. So it's all about making feasibility studies, making prototypes, moving through to scalability, and getting things to pre-commercialisation. I don't want to talk too much about it. I'm going to talk about the challenges and what's happening in this space. So, as Alex, Gianna, and David have said before, there are a significant number of market trends at the moment. We've got societal factors which are actually causing requirements to innovate, requirements to change. We've got significant innovative technologies happening now, and we've got shifts in care and business models. So if we start to look at these societal factors to start with, we have a significant population growth, and this is obviously bringing with it a lot more people that require help, treatment, and so on, which gives additional costs. And within that, we're getting a shift in demographics as well. So we're moving to an aging population. I think the others have put up some figures about that, but it's a significant cost. And what's happening is we're getting a lot of people living longer, and as they're living longer, they're starting to see a lot of conditions related to old age, a lot of conditions related to multiple morbidities. I think it was over 80, when you're over 80-year-old, about 50% of people were taking more than 6 medications a day, some horrific numbers like this. So there's significant polypharmacy, significant conditions all happening at the same time. And these are long-term conditions, these are conditions that require treatment over a long period of time. And coupled with that, we have this factor here, which has been said a few times, 50% adherence. So, people aren't taking their medicines, and some of this is because they forget, some of this is because they don't agree with the treatment, they don't have that concordance built with the doctor. Some of it is because what they do is they get a pill, they go home, they look on Google, and Google says this will kill you, so they don't take it anymore. So every time you have a headache, you look on Google, you've got a brain tumour, when it's potentially just a headache. So part of the issue is getting the right information to the patient, the information that they can use. Innovative technologies are really coming out now as well. So we have advanced therapies and targeted medicine. So the medicines themselves are changing. They're becoming more personalised. They're becoming much more advanced and potentially much more costly as well. We have a digital transformation. So as it's been said before, there's a real move towards cloud-based systems and very complicated software systems and systems that can do a lot. They can learn, machines that can learn, and artificial intelligence that can make decisions. So that is really starting to become a lot more accessible. And obviously, pretty much everybody has a mobile phone in their pocket as well. I think it was 81% in the US. But specifically, technologies which are really interesting for connected devices and smart packaging as well is the Internet of Things, is the sensor technologies, battery systems and so on, and connected devices themselves. So these things are actually starting to get some traction now. We're actually seeing a lot of these devices coming out in the marketplace. Shifts in care and business models. So some payers are looking towards outcome-based treatments, so only paying if they have a positive outcome for a patient. In the UK, for example, there is already one. It's a hepatitis C treatment. You take a pill. If your hepatitis C goes, then the pharma company is paid for it. If hepatitis C doesn't go, you take the pill again, and so on and so on and so on. If the treatment never works, you never pay for that medicine. That may be coming. Preventative care, there's a massive push towards actually helping patients to manage their conditions and prevent them from getting certain conditions. The NHS in the UK brought out their 5-year strategic plan, and within that they actually specifically talked about wearables, devices in the home, and trying to help patients to prevent becoming ill. Healthcare systems worldwide are generally all about acute care. Someone gets ill, they get treated. They're moving towards actually helping people to not get ill, because they realise a patient that is healthier for longer costs less. And there's significant servitization and personalisation as well. So we're moving towards much more personalised medicines, much more personalised packaging, late stage customisation. Wandering around the show downstairs, I'm sure we'll see a lot of various different companies working on lots of different labels and printable systems to personalise the packaging for individual patients. And companies like Amazon and so on are moving into this space. Amazon bought PillPack last year and are talking about having direct-to-patient delivery of medicines. So what I'm going to do is talk about a model of what the healthcare system is today and how we can actually move to a future healthcare system. So normally when I present slides like this, I talk about this gentleman being called Bob. I'm in France. I'm going to pick a French name. What's a good French name?
Pierre.
Pierre, okay. This is Pierre. Pierre's got a problem. Pierre's got a bad stomach. Because he's got a bad stomach, he goes to see his doctor. He doesn't go to the doctor, he doesn't do anything until he gets his bad stomach. The doctor then does some tests. The doctor says, I know what you have a little bacterial infection. And what you need to do is you need to take an antibiotic to treat that bacterial infection. So to get that antibiotic to the pharmacy so that he can take it, we have to produce that antibiotic, we have to ship that antibiotic, we have to package that antibiotic, and it has to be ready for him. He can then take the antibiotic. In this case it will be an oral solid dose, but it could be something else depending on what that particular condition is. He takes that, and generally what a patient does is they monitor themselves. They think, am I getting better? If they get better, then they're essentially lost to the healthcare system. The doctor doesn't know the patient's got better. All the doctor knows is he hasn't come back. They have no idea what's happening there. If he does come back because it hasn't got better, then it goes around the system again. That's difficult enough as it is. However, let's say you've got all these people. This is let's say a group of 100 people who all have the same bacterial infection. Maybe 20 or 30% of them will take that medication and it will work well for them. The group in the middle might take the medication, it works, but it takes a little bit longer. And the group of red people at the bottom, it might actually have some contraindications and cause them some harm. So it's difficult to manage with one person, but even more difficult with the generalized medicines we have at the moment. So what can we do to actually help prevent, I can't remember the name we have now, is it? Pierre, that's it, Pierre. How do we actually prevent Pierre from getting ill? So what we can do is we can actually help him to understand himself. Let's say we can have a one-to-one relationship between somebody who's looking after Pierre and his health. We can look at his diet, we can look at what he does, we can look at basically help him to be a healthier person. And by doing that, we can actually understand potentially when Pierre is going to get ill, or help Pierre to prevent him getting ill. So that's and you can link that to the kind of tests and his particular genome and his particular things that he's been to the doctor about. That's fairly easy to do with one person. However, obviously a healthcare system doesn't just look at one person. It looks at many tens, thousands, millions of people. And when we get to that level, it's impossible to do it on a one-to-one basis. Doctors are actually worried about seeing adherence data. They're really scared of it, because if a doctor sees a poorly adhering patient, in the UK anyway, he legally has to act. And if he has to act, he has to take time out of his day to act. So we need to have some way, some system, something that's in between that. And what we're doing now is obviously we're seeing a lot of these connected devices. So the Apple Watch has been mentioned a few times today. This is the first real mainstream consumer device which is FDA approved, which will actually help to tell you if you've got atrial fibrillation and also if you fall. So it's starting to get there. We can start to use these devices, these connected wearable devices, to fire up to a system which could be an AI-based system, a cloud-based system, to start to make some of those decisions and understand what's happening to these groups of patients and be that middleman and potentially selectively pick those patients which are at risk to allow those doctors to act. But we need AI, we need these technologies to work there. If we move to the other side, move to the diagnostic side as well, we can start to harvest the patient information, the genomics, the proteomics, the results of tests, and start to understand diseases and understand rare diseases more. And if we see a certain result in a test, we know better how to treat that patient, what actually fits that particular patient to treat him and make him better. But where does the smart med tech and the smart packaging fit into this? Well, this whole thing only works if you know the patient is actually taking the medicine. Without actually the patient taking the medicine, you're not going to treat that patient. Yes, you can help him to not get ill, but if he does get ill and you want to help him treat that condition, you can't do it. So it's that glue which holds this whole thing together. It doesn't always have to be a connected device, but if you want to use this entire ecosystem, there's got to be some way of getting that information into the whole ecosystem. Right, so what I've done here is I've just taken one part of the ecosystem. I've just looked at the supply chain part. So traditionally, if we look at environmental monitoring, when we make medicines, we have very good control of temperature and so on. When we ship that medicine, we essentially have consignment level monitoring. We have good in-pharmacy control of temperature, And when we get to the patient, we have absolutely zero. We hope that that patient keeps that medicine in the right conditions. So if it requires cold chain, then there's a potentially significant issue there as well. If that is a medicine which is on a clinical trial, and that clinical trial ends up being at the patient's home, or the patient takes the medicine at home, there could be an issue with that patient not having efficacious medicine, so the trial could fail. So it's a potential massive issue. We have track and trace on a shipper level. We have generally traditional pharmacy services, very, very paper-based still. There is computer systems used, but a lot of places around the world it still is very, very paper-based, and very traditional face-to-face interactions with a doctor. And the sort of packaging we have, yes, there are connected devices that we've talked about and I'll come on to in a second, but in reality, a lot of these things are still very traditional blister packs and vials and bottles and so on. And what that does is that gives us massive, massive issues, massive challenges. You know, we're losing up to about 20% of medicines through environmental excursions. You know, through things being left on the runway in Dubai, there are being lost entire shipments of medicine. In the Western world, that's about sort of 4% of the clinical trials and about 6% of the commercial medicines. So it's not as bad in areas we generally live, but right across the world it is massively significant, especially in very hot countries. There is a lack of environmental monitoring with the patients. We don't know what's happening to that medicine when it's with the patient. We're hoping that it's okay. I was speaking to a pharmacist at one of the hospitals in my local region, and they were telling me that they keep medicines on the wards in the hospitals in fridges, as you can imagine. And what they do is they get the nurses to go along and read the temperature of the medicines off a thermometer which is inside every fridge. Went to one ward one day, and the entire day the temperature of the fridge was 21 degrees Celsius, because the nurse had left the thermometer on the top of the fridge and still continued to write that down. That meant that everything in that fridge had to be then scrapped. And that's the issue with not having temperature on each individual pack. You could potentially lose that. It doesn't work for every medicine, but those expensive medicines, it's key. Complex supply chains, difficult to manage. They're becoming much more complex, especially with some of these new autologous cell therapies and these new medicines that are coming out. Poorly informed patients, dispensing errors, accessibility issues, lots of problems. Where can we go to? Well, through some of the technologies which are coming out now, we can actually move towards item level monitoring. We can put smart labels on packages which can measure temperature, humidity, location, depending on what that medicine is. We can have item level track and trace, so this can be barcodes, or it can be wireless, it can be RFID, it can be Bluetooth, again, depending on what that medicine is. If it's a 20-cent paracetamol, maybe not. If it's £1,000 autologous medicine, hundreds of thousands of pounds of autologous medicine, you want to have as much sensing system and track and trace and temperature on there as you can. These systems, these smart labels that go on the primary or secondary packaging are starting to link in with smart pharmacy services, so you can track medicines around the hospital or a patient's home, or help to actually improve clinical trials by knowing location, temperature, and so on. And you can inform patients better, you can improve patient adherence, compliance, and you can actually potentially get better patient outcomes as well. And this can be done through a lot of systems, but one of the things we're looking at is these smart or connected devices. I should probably say connected devices rather than smart. But this is happening now. You know, there's a lot of companies out there which are actually starting to work in this space. And I'll show some examples here. So I've not particularly been selective in these. These are the first few which popped up on the internet when I searched. So on the left we have MedIC from Information Mediary. So these guys are producing smart blister packs in lots of different formats. They're paid to have a conventional electronic circuit board which connects with the cloud. They have what looks like a etched copper track which breaks when you pull a pill out. We have this other company here, Shriner Medifarm, who have produced this smart pill pack system here, which is a printable track with a conventional electronic system. These guys are actually here at Pharmapack on stand B32 if you'd like to speak to them. And again, they have a system which you break the tabs, it measures when it's being taken, communicates up to the cloud, and that information can go to doctors or to patients. Smart tags for smart track and trace are already out there. TSS have been working with some large pharma companies for a while, popping one of these temperature tails in each shipper box to understand what is the temperature across the supply chain. And companies like Every Dennison are moving towards a smart label where you actually can put a label on every single packet. Smart MedTech, being lots of examples today, but two are here. Propeller Health, which I think was working with GSK for a little thing which fits on the top of an inhaler, measures when you actually press, and it measures when a patient is taking medicine. And we have Hero Health here as well, with a digital connected spirometer to measure how much you're actually breathing out, what your lung function is, and also feeding into a digital health system for an inhaler for a puffer, which will know when you're taking medicine. So there's a lot of things out there, but what we're seeing none of these are really gaining massive traction. You know, we're getting many prototypes, we're getting many people launching, but we're not getting many people who are actually making these in huge volumes. And we've talked about the challenges. You know, I think there was a few that David mentioned. It was adoption rate of connected devices is low through little knowledge, through not promoting healthcare systems, through complicated user interfaces, high cost ecosystems not ready. And I totally agree with those issues. And one of the things I'm trying to say is that, you know, to do this, to actually move to the next step, we need this massive collaborative approach. And it's all those groups of individuals which we've talked about today. So it's the clinical input, it's the patient groups, it's the pharma industry, it's so on. And the problem is that in this particular area, the person who is actually producing the device or producing the smart packaging might not be the total beneficiary of it. So if you go and see pharma and you say to pharma, you know, you can get benefits from smart packaging, from smart devices. Pharma will say, yes, I'm interested in that, but I make medicines. So what I want someone else to do is make that, and then we can use it. What they won't want to really do is pay for that on their own, because there's benefits right across the system. So we need to understand those whole benefits, and we need all these partners to work together to do it. So what are we suggesting? Well, similar to the slides that have been shown before, we're suggesting that we need to get all of these groups together to co-design and co-invent. And what we're doing is we're not just suggesting this, we're actually starting to do this. So we are working with, in the northeast region of the UK, the Newcastle area, we're working with our local NHS, with the group of pharma companies in the region, with our innovation centre, with universities, with patient groups. And what we have, which is quite unique, is there's a network called Voice in this region, which has about 6,000 older individuals who work to help co-design, co-test devices and so on. And Gianni, happy to link you into that, because they're a fantastic group. So we're actually starting to really pull this together because we really want to try and move this forward. So what's next? What do we do? Where's CPI's bit in this? So we can do one little bit of this whole thing. We work in printable electronics, or printable hybrid electronics is one of our core expertises. And what we're saying is, you know, we can actually use this electronics to help overcome some of the challenges that we have in connected devices. So we can take printable electronics, we can actually print sensors, we can print various different conductive traces on flexible substrates. And where we can't get a functionality from printable electronics, we can take conventional electronics, even bare die components, the size of a grain of sand, and put those on as well. So you can have a flexible substrate with all these components on there. And this gives you significant design freedoms, allows you to embed electronics within places you couldn't do before. And it can make wearables much more unobtrusive, for example. And this can be built into smart labels, adherence packaging, or smart medical devices. And the smart labels and adherence packaging we've already made. Smart medical devices, we have a medical device division as well, which is looking at this sort of thing too. And why would you want to use printable electronics? What's the actual benefit of this sort of upcoming technology? Well, it's bendable and flexible. You can get electronics into places by bending them. So you haven't got that rigidity of a standard conventional electronic substrate. You can make things large area, which can be useful for things like large area radio telescopes, for example, but in this sense, you can make a large area thing and you can chop it down into a lot of smaller components, which brings you onto the next slide, the next thing, which is high volume. Because this electronics systems are printed, or they're pick and placed in volume, you can make things in volume. And as you can make things in volume, you can potentially get to low price points. And it's thin. You know, some of the substrates we use are 50 microns, even less. So you put your components on there and you can really get your design freedom, you can really get your smart components into something new. Embed it into plastics, embed it into sort of packaging, embed it into blister foils, for example. You can do a lot with it. And what do? Well, we, as an innovation centre, we don't generally invent. We have companies come to us with a new sensor system, a new component, a new something which would be needed to make a smart device or a smart packaging thing work. And what we can do is we can either help them to improve that component or build it into prototypes and then scale it up into volume. Or we could work with someone who wants a solution to take all the components, put them together and make a solution. So we can do all of these things. And how do we do it? Well, we start off with something small. We start off working with people with prototypes, with actually proving that things work. But what we can do is we can actually not only do it at small volume, as you can see from some of the equipment here, we can take things into volume production. So we can pick and place up to 15,000 devices an hour. We can make many, many final devices. But what we don't do is we don't then take things to large-scale commercialization. Our role is to get to the point where a company can prove something in volume, maybe 15, 20, 100,000, so that a pharma company or someone large can take it on and say, this is what we'd like to do. So we de-risk that innovative step. And what I've shown here, the final slide, is just a couple of little examples of some of the things we've made. So example here at the bottom left, this is a smart label which measures temperature, humidity, and this was actually developed alongside GSK in a collaborative project. And we're making 10,000 of these now to put onto clinical medicines to actually test them through the supply chain. And this thing here with the LEDs that you'll see on our stand is quite just a pretty example of how you can make large area electronics, and you can pick reasonably large components and pick and place them. And this was produced, you can produce miles of this stuff quite easily and quickly. So that's pretty much it. So, I think I've talked about how there is significant opportunities to improve health and supply chains. We all seem to agree to that, which is great. There's a number of excellent innovations coming to market now, but to get traction, I think we need to work together, and we need to bring all these groups together. Is printable and flexible electronics a piece of the pie? I personally think it is. It's one way to do it, it's one way to actually move this thing forward, but it's not the only thing. And an invitation to come and see us on stand F100 and have a chat.